Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we are here today with lesson number 10 in our incredible new tutorial series where you are learning artificial intelligence on the Jetson Xavier NX. I'm going to need you to pour yourself a nice big mug of iced coffee. And I'm going to need you to get out your Jetson Xavier NX gear. And while you're getting your gear out, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your encouragement and your support that keeps this great content coming. You guys that are not helping out yet, think about looking down in the description. There is a link over to my Patreon account. Think about hopping over there and hooking a brother up. Hey, I really sincerely appreciate you guys that are helping me. And I was able today to install the new studio lights, which I got with the help that you guys gave me on Patreon. And the old studio lights that I had were really cumbersome. They were hard to use and they were always in the way. And I got new LED based studio lights that I can control with this remote control. I can even set the color temperature and the relative brightness between the lights all from this handy little thing. And that's just going to make my life easier. And when my life is easier, I can produce more videos and I can produce better videos. The other big upgrade in equipment, I've had this a while, but this Yeti microphone, I struggled mightily with for years to get good audio quality. And finally with this nice Yeti microphone, I think we're getting to a pretty spiffy studio setup here. So appreciate you guys that are helping out there. I really do. What we are going to do today is we're going to look at the solution, or at least my solution to the homework that I gave you in lesson number 9, and that was to track this blue pin. Those of you who tracked a red pin or a green pin will get points marked off for not following instructions. You were to track a blue pin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my solution to that. And what the assignment was that you were supposed to have each camera independently track it. So you just don't have the two cameras doing the same thing. Each camera is looking at the pin, and each camera is pointing specifically to get the pin in the middle of its field of view. And the kind of neat thing is, you can imagine, we ought to see some parallax, right? If I start bringing that pin close to the two eyes, they should start kind of cross-eyeing in, or going further out, tracking together, and then closer in, coming like that. Who got the homework done? Did anybody get the homework done? I hope you guys are actually doing the homework and not just copying me. Okay, I'm guilty. I have hot coffee and iced coffee today. All right, I have both coffees just because I can. All right, so what we are going to do is I need you to call up your most excellent Visual Studio Code, and then we are going to start a fresh new program. So we are going to come over here, and I am operating in the OpenCV folder. We will be going with the dark gray background today. I hope you guys don't hate it. I just kind of like it because it's just a little more contrast, and I think I can see it a little easier, and I hope that you guys can see it a little bit easier too. I will get out of your way. And then we are going to open up a new program, and it looks like that we will be in OpenCV 6, OpenCV-6-dual servo. dualservo.py, and the .py is kind of important, as I'm sure you guys know. Now I'm going to move the File Explorer out of the way so you have a little bit bigger window. And I know I made the view of the servos a little bit bigger, and I know you guys sometimes hate the picture-in-picture, but I want you guys to see what those servos are doing, and I want you to have a good view of it. Now we're going to start where we left off last week, and so you can come to the most excellent www.toptechboy.com, and you can look for Jetson Xavier NX Lesson 9. We have the code that we ended up with in lesson number 9. And I believe we click here, right mouse click copy. You guys should know this by now. You guys should already have the code. You shouldn't be having to go over there. You should have your own code from last week that you wrote along with me. Okay, this, I believe, the servos we had turned off. We had turned the servos off, and then there's my pin. I'll try to get where you can see the pin too. Okay, there's my pen. We turn the servos off, and I believe that it just draws a box around the object that it finds. So let's right mouse click and run this thing and see what happens. Okay, yeah, so if you look at that, what it's doing is it's finding the blue pin, and you know, we could dial in the parameters to have it find it a little better, but for right now we just wanted to see that the program would run. Mission accomplished, it does run. Okay, now we want to go back in and we want to turn those servos on, and we want each camera to be tracking Mr. Happy Blue Pin. Okay, Mr. Happy Blue Pin is going to get tracked by both of them. Now remember, what was it in lesson number 8? I believe we had the servos running. So when we did lesson number 9, we left the servo code in there. We just commented it out. Well, we're going to go uncomment it out to make things move a little bit quicker. We won't do all the typing, but remember, we need to load the library, so we need to bring back our from Adafruit servo kit, import servo kit. Okay, then we do a bunch of track bar nonsense, and then after that we create our kit, and our kit talks to that servo control board over there, and we can control 4 servos from the one board. So we just have to create one object, kit. That's the board. We talk to kit, kit's the board talks to the 4 servos. Hope that makes sense. All right, now we are going to need to set up some initial parameters. We're going to have tilt and pan and D-tilt and D-pan. Okay, but we're not going to just do that marching along like we did before. So we don't need D-tilt and D-pan because that was just an offset where the thing just went back and forth. So we're going to take that out. But now we have 2 pan tilt setups. How many servos is that? 4. So we're going to have 2 different tilts, and we're going to have 2 different pans. So I'm going to say tilt 1 and pan 1. And then I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to say tilt 2, and then I'm going to have, you guessed it, pan 2. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we are going to come up here and we are going to start positioning our servos. So I'm going to start just by uncommenting, and then we'll fix what we need. Okay, so we'll have the first 2, pan and tilt. I will call that pan 1, tilt 1, and then I will call this pan 2 and tilt 2. Tilt, there is no tilt 3, tilt 2, at least not in this lesson. Not in this lesson. Okay, so that is looking pretty darn good, isn't it? That is looking pretty darn good. And I think what we can do now is let's just run it and just see if those servos should just move a little bit. I think just to make sure everybody's happy, everybody's playing nice together, and we ought to see those things load up here. It takes a second to load that library, so don't panic here. Okay. So we saw them move, and we see that we're still seeing the blue pin. So that's good, man. We are on a roll here. I have a feeling that this is going to be a great day. I really do. I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those days that I don't just sit and make endless mistakes. I have a feeling that we are going to just cruise through this thing like you wouldn't believe. Okay, so let's see here. We do some camera setting nonsense, and we've got both cameras running. That's all good from last time. We've got cam 1 set, cam 2 set, then those are the strings that create cam 1 and cam 2, and then we're reading frame 1 from cam 1, frame 2 from cam 2. You should recognize that. Then we have all of our track bar nonsense going where we can tune in what we're looking for. So this is TBN, which is track bar nonsense. And then we come down here, and this is where the real action starts. We're doing our first contour. And I'm going to have to admit, guys, let's see, contour 1, we're looking at frame 1. Okay, yeah, contour 1 is frame 1, and so then that would be off of camera 1. We just got to make sure that we are activating the right servo. And so remember, we have this, so then we find a contour, and then we put it finds all the contours, everything blue it finds and kind of draws a circle around with dots. And then what we want is we want to put the contours in order because we just want the biggest one. We don't want some just noise in the background. So we just want the biggest contour. So we sort the contours here. We sort the contours here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go for CNT in contours, but we know that we're just really just grabbing the first one because we want the biggest one. And if we had two blue objects, we don't want to be going back and forth between the blue objects. So we're just really going to go through this for loop one time. I could have just said like probably contour 0, CNT is contour 0, but I left it where we stepped through anyway. Then we find the area of the contour, and then we find the position of, if we were going to draw a box around the contour, it's kind of the upper left and then the width and the height of where that object is that we have found. And so we get the X, the Y, the width, and the height. We only want to count it if it is greater than 100 pixels because, again, little random blue things we don't want to start tracking on. So we're only going to count it if it is 100 pixels. And then what we are going to do is we are going to draw a rectangle around it. And that's kind of where we ended up last time, is we drew our rectangle, and then that is pretty much all that we did. Well, now what we need to do is, after drawing the rectangles, what we're going to do is we are going to figure out where the center, like, you got to think, where is the center of the contour? Okay. Where is the center of the frame? And then that distance between there is the error. And then we want to move the servos to where the error goes to 0. So the first thing that we need to do is just kind of come up with where is the center of the contour. Well, I'm going to call it, that's my object of interest in the X direction. Where is the center of the contour? Well, it would be the X that we got from up here, right? The X of that corner of the contour. And then I need to add half the width to it. Okay, so it would be plus W divided by 2. So here is the X of the corner. Here's the width. Here's X plus width divided by 2. So now I'm at least lined up in X. And then similarly, object OBJ-Y, the Y center of the contour is going to be Y plus what? H divided by 2. All right. And so this is Y, the corner. This is Y plus the height. And then this is Y plus the height over 2. And then X, the width, plus 2. And then that gets right in the center of the contour. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, stop and think about it a little while. All right. Now, what is the error? Well, the error in pan, and I'm going to have an error in pan for one camera mount and an error in pan for the other camera mount. So right now we're just dealing with the first camera, the first pan tilt bracket. So I'm going to call that error pan 1. Okay. And that is going to be OBJX minus width. And this would be width divided by 2. Okay. And then the error tilt 1 is going to be equal to I can't type today, OBJY minus height divided by 2, like that. Okay, and so then I've got the width and the height. All right, I've got the width and the height. And now I've got to make sure that it knows what width and height is. Okay, yeah, I'm running on width and height here. I thought we called that display width and display height. How do I? Okay, I guess, yeah, we're going with width and height. All right, so that we did somewhere along the way. So we do know what width and height is. So let's think about that. I'm sorry, I was just wondering, did I really specify what width and height is? Okay, so how is that the error? Well, what is the center of the camera view? Well, it's the width of the whole camera view divided by 2, and then the height of the whole camera view divided by 2, and that is the center of the camera view. And I'm interested in the difference between that and the center of the contour, which I already explained is OBJX and OBJY. So we subtract those two, and then that is our error. We have an error in pan, and we have an error in tilt, and we have one for one bracket, and we have one for the other bracket. But we're just doing one camera at a time here, and then we'll come back and do the other camera. If we get the first one working, the other one should be really, really easy. Okay, so we have that defined error in pan and error in tilt. I like that. I think that's most of the heavy lifting right there. It would almost run right now, but there's a couple of things. We got to remember, like if this starts coming out of the field of view, you don't want to try to drive the servo less than 0 or more than 180. So we better put some if statements in here. So what I'm going to say is if, well, no, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to calculate our new place that we want to point. Okay, we're going to drive that error out. So I'm going to say if the absolute value of the error in pan 1, if the absolute value of the error in the pan 1 is greater than 15 pixels, if we're further than 15 pixels off, then what we're going to do is we're going to say pan 1 is equal to pan 1 plus error pan 1 divided by 40. Now, why divided by 40? Because if I have a 50-degree error, I don't want to try to move that. If I have a 50 pixel error, then I don't want to try to take that off all at once. And then we also have to see is that our units don't match. That in one case where our error is in pixels and the signal that we're putting in is in degrees. Well, 1 degree is probably 10 pixels, right? Now, that's the wonderful thing about control systems. You don't even have to have the same units as long as you're scaling them roughly right, and as long as you're going the right direction. And so what I'm doing is there's a certain amount of error, and then therefore, because there's a certain amount of error, I am adding that error back in to try to get rid of it. I hope that makes sense. And in this case, if the error is positive, you add it, and you can kind of go through and you can see why in this case you add it. But you got to go through and think about it. If you don't believe me, try subtracting it, and you will see what happens. So if the absolute value of the error is greater than 15, then I'm going to change that angle on that servo by an amount of the error divided by 40, and then over time it will drive that error to almost 0. Okay, now if we do that, we're also going to have to do the tilt, and so I think I will copy this and we will do this pretty easy. Okay, so we're going to do Control V, and then, man, did that not do good on my tabs, did it? I hope you had better luck than I did. Okay, so then if the absolute value of the tilt 1, so I have pan 1, and now I'm going to have to do the tilt. If the absolute value of the tilt 1 is greater than 15, then what we are going to do is tilt 1 is equal to tilt 1 plus error tilt. Okay, and I will just tell you, and I won't go through it. We talked about this in the last time we did this, but this you've got to subtract this one, okay, because it's just the way it's the orientation of the units, that this one you have to subtract to get rid of the error, because right, tilt is going this way and pan is going this way. And if you just sit and if you really want to understand it, print the values out and then move the pen around, and you will understand what I am talking about. Okay, so now those look good. Now we've got to make sure about this out of range problem. So we're going to have to do a bunch of if statements. So I'm going to say if pan 1 is greater than 180, if pan 1 is greater than 180, what I want to do is I want to say pan 1 is equal to 180. So, you know, if it's trying to drive off the range, I force it to stop there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print something like pan out of range, just so you see that's why the servo isn't moving. Okay, so if pan is greater than 180, pan 1 is greater than 180, that looks good. Okay, let's copy that and let's paste it. That looks pretty good. And same thing, we're going to say if tilt, let's see. Now we're going to say if pan 1 now, we're going to take care of pan. If pan 1 is less than 0, all right, we have a problem. If pan 1 is less than 0, we want to make it 0. So you can't go less than 0 and you can't go more than 180. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we've got to do the same thing with tilt. Okay, so now I'm going to say if tilt 1 is greater than 180, then tilt 1 is equal to 180. So I'm pinning that in there too, and then I'm going to print tilt out of range. I'm hoping this makes sense. Okay. And then I'm going to say if tilt 1 is less than 0, then we're going to make tilt 1 equal to 0. So we got those values pinned in there. I think that is pretty darn good. We've got everything pinned in. And so now at this point, what do we want to do? Okay, what we want to do now is we want to move the servo. So I'm going to say kit.servo, and I'm going to do servo 2 dot angle is equal to pan 1. Now why am I doing that? Well, it's because contour 1 is frame 1. Contour 1 is on frame 1. Frame 1 is sensor ID 0. Okay, and for me that's the one on the left. Okay, so that's why I'm doing it that way, because that's just physically how mine are laid out. All right, so I'm going to move this one. It's going to be kit.servo2.angle, because it's sort of like, this is the way I could explain it. For me, camera 0 is on kit servo 2 and kit servo 3. All right, if yours, you've got to make sure that you're not looking with one camera and then moving the servo on the other camera. And so this is, for me, for some reason, my my camera 0 is on the second set of servos. So that would be kit servo 2 is pan 1, and now kit.servo 3, kit.servo3.angle is equal to tilt 1. Now, could that actually work? Is there anything else we need to do? Well, we're going to find out. I'm going to run this thing. I hope you guys have your coffee poured. Now remember, only one of the servos, both of them are going to box the pen, but only one of them is going to track it. So let's try this. Run Python file in terminal. I'm having fun today. I hope you guys are having fun. I love doing this. I like having all you guys watch and ask questions and stuff, and I love the live streams. Okay, let's look here. So let me see. Ooh, we had a camera malfunction there. Camera malfunction. Okay, so I'm going to put it here. And guys, I'm looking at that mask because I want the mask to really find this better. Okay, so I'm going to lower. Oh, you guys can't see that, can you? Okay, that's my track bar. All right, see, I want that mask to completely get the blue cap, and it's not really completely getting it. And I'm going to drop this value low, and then I'm going to drop the saturation, and then I have that thing nailed. Now let's see. Look at that. Shazam! Look at that. We are tracking this thing. Look at that. And do you see that little guy going crazy? Look at that. He is on this thing, isn't he? Man, you're not going to get away from him. You are not going to get away from him. Okay, now he's finding the bigger blue thing. Okay, so we'll put it down there like that. Okay, do you see that? And I promise you, also do notice that this other one is boxing it. Okay, the second camera is boxing it. It's just the second camera. Oh, look, he's locked onto the other servo. Now stop that. That's rude. Stop that. That's rude. Don't do that. Okay, you're embarrassing me in my video. Don't stare at that other servo. All right, so now where are we? Okay, now what we need to do is we need to quit out of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take all that code that we just wrote, which started with object X and object Y, and I'm going to try to copy it. I wish I knew how to copy to keep my tabs right. I'm going to copy all of that stuff in I started at object X is equal to X plus W over 2, and then we're going to come all the way down to moving the servos, and we're going to copy, and then we're going to come down to our second camera, okay, which is frame 2, cam 2, and then the sensor ID 1, and then we're going to come down here in the same place, and before the break, let's see if I can paste this thing and keep the tabs right. Like a boss. Man, did you see that? I got the tabs right. All right, but now what we have to see, all right, the object X and object Y are based on the X and Y values that we get from the bounding box of the contour. Those are still X and Y because we just read them here, so we don't need to change that. But here we're going to make this error pan 2, okay? And width is still width because the frame is width is still the frame width. And this is going to be error tilt 2, okay? And then here we just got to go through. It's going to be error pan 2. It's going to be pan 1. It's going to be pan 1. It's going to be pan 1. And then it's going to be, man, I messed up. I meant 2. All these things are 2. I was saying 1. Okay, I was saying what I was changing. So error pan 2, error tilt 2, error pan 2, pan 2, pan 2, error pan 2. Sounds like a song. Error tilt 2, tilt 2, tilt 2, error tilt 2. Okay. And then let me turn this nonsense off. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's see. And so now I am at pan 2. And then I am at pan 2. And then I'm at pan 2. And then I'm at pan 2. And then I'm at tilt 2, tilt 2. Man, and if you guys miss one of these, you're going to end up with an error that is going to make this thing behave strangely, and then it's going to be hard to figure out. Okay, now this one is the other bracket. Okay, and so this is my servo. Okay, my pan is going to be on 0, and my tilt is going to be on 1. And if you put your thing together like I did, it's going to be like this. Now the only question is, what slot you have your camera plugged into. Like, is camera 0 plugged into which, into which bracket? So you've just, if it's acting strange, just make sure you've got it hooked up like I do, but you should be able to get that figured out. Okay, and oh, this was a bad one. I got to put 2 there and 2 there, because if I didn't put 2 there and 2 there, it would be looking with this camera, but both cameras would be moving based on what this camera saw. If you think about it, I think that will make sense. Let's see if this thing's going to run now. The tension builds. Okay, it's showing some signs of life. Okay, so what you can see is, let me get all the way out of your way so you can see everything. What you can see is, actually that's pretty good, but I'm going to drop this a little bit here and drop this a little bit. Okay, so what you can see is when this thing fired up, this was not in the field of view of the second camera, so I've got to help it out a little bit where it can at least see it. Okay, where it can at least see it. Man, I need a bigger screen or something here. I will put this back behind me like that. Okay, so I've got to let it see it, so I'm going to bring it over to its field of view, and then it should lock on. Bam! Do you see that? Look at that. Don't look at that part down there. Look at this part. Okay, do you see that? Now watch this. Up. Dual tracking. Yes, sir. Did you see that? Man, and look at that. All the way over here. And you guys look at the servos. There's a lot to look at, but look at the servos. Now this with parallax, as I'm far away, the 2 cameras are kind of staying. Ooh, now he found the other servo again. Now I wish you wouldn't do that. You're embarrassing me. Okay, now keep your eyes on the pen. Okay, so when these things are far away, they're tracking kind of pretty much parallel, right? But watch as I come in. Do you see how now they're not parallel? Do you see how now they are kind of towed in? And now watch this. Okay, what's happening is this camera is kind of reaching outside of its range. It can't keep up. Okay, so I probably just need to adjust. I just need to adjust that where pointing this way is in the center of its travel. I could do that by just picking it up and twisting a little bit and putting it down. But oh man, this is so cool. All right, you just tell me, you guys can tell me I just get too excited about little things. I just get too excited about little things, but this is really like a very big deal to me that we are able to write a program where each camera is independently tracking that thing. Each camera is independently tracking that thing, and I think that is just super cool. All right, guys, let me know, are you having as much fun as I am with this stuff? It's just like I'm like a kid in a candy store. I just really, really, really love doing this. Need to give you a homework for next week because we really got to be thinking about this stuff. We're going to move on, and we're going to be doing things a lot more exciting than just a pen cap, okay? But you got to get your mind around things like you've got an error, and you got to drive that error to 0 by adding to your signal some fraction of the error. Hey, let's see if we could be more aggressive. Like this. What you can do is you can play around with that number. Like let's say, what if I came in and instead of dividing by 40, let's say I divided by 20. What's going to happen, it's going to move a lot quicker, but it's probably going to overshoot. Okay, it's going to move a lot quicker, but it is going to overshoot. And you can see that it would be a lot easier to make this a variable. Okay, it's going to move a lot quicker, but it's probably going to overshoot. And what you want to do is you want to adjust that number until for you it's something that's snappy, but not something where it becomes unstable. Okay, and let's see, I think I can come... Okay, looks like it is trying to start. And okay, do you see how at 20 it is actually becoming unstable. And so I'm trying to drive it too fast. All right. So that certainly didn't work. Let's say if we say divide by 30, divide by 30, come back up here, divide by 30, divide by 30. This is called like a PID controller, and for this we're only using P, which is proportional. We're driving the error out by taking a signal that is proportional to the error. Now, if we wanted to get fancier, we could add the I and the D, but for this it's probably not needed. Okay, that is really fast, but do you see how it's just a little bit unstable? Like it comes to a stable endpoint, but it's a little bit of ringing in there, particularly on the one that's on my right. Okay, so I think that I'm going to go back to 40, and you can imagine I played around with these numbers, and you can get like real stable operation if you divide by like 100, but then it's kind of slow. So you got to play around with these parameters and get something that is snappy, but at the same time, not unstable. All right. There it goes. Boom. Oh, man. I love this. I really love this. This is really, really, really slick. I just think that is great. Okay, so homework assignment. You guys need a homework assignment. I would never cheat you out of a homework assignment. What your homework assignment is now, I want you to have 2 pens. I want you to have a red pen and a blue pen. And one camera tracks the red pen and the other camera tracks the blue pen. Okay, so think about that. Is that doable? Yeah, it's very doable. And you can do it pretty quickly because there's not a lot of new stuff. You're just going to have to copy chunks of your code, and then you're going to have to, kind of get, here the 2 cameras are operating independently, but everyone's looking for blue. So you've got to have one now looking for one color and the other one looking for the other color, and then we'll have 2 pins. All right. Okay, guys, man, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys are having fun. I hope some of you Jetson Nano guys have found your way over here as well. These things will run on the Jetson Nano. So this has been a lot of fun. I'll check in with you next week on the homework. We'll do another lesson. And if you guys like this video, make sure to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, when you subscribe, make sure that you ring that bell. If you guys want to hook up with me on Twitter, I'm Paul J. McWhorter on Twitter. Or if you just want to see what's going on with me outside of these lessons, you can offer me a friend request on Facebook. I am Paul and Anna McWhorter. Paul space and Anna space McWhorter. Anna's my wife, so Paul and Anna McWhorter. Look me up, give me a friend request, and I'd be happy for you guys to kind of track what I have going on outside of these lessons if you're interested. Okay, guys, Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you all later.